Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video with me, Shruti. You're watching Living Our Ascension. So today I want to speak about a really important subject because we're moving through a really important portal or time for those of us who are on the ascension path, the Ascension Timeline. And so this is from November 16th to the 19th, that it's exact. This is the Galactic Pleiadian portal, or Pleiadian lineup as some people call it. And it's when the sun aligns with the galactic degrees, in the constellation of Taurus and Scorpio. As you know, the sun is in Scorpio right now. And when it goes through those upper degrees, 25 and higher, it comes, these are the degrees that are close to the galactic center, because galactic center lies at 27 Sagittarius. And so there's this alignment that's formed also because the Scorpio and Taurus axis is related to where the Pleiades is located. So it becomes this time of these ready activations and acceleration of our soul missions in one way or the other. And we have it twice a year in the month of May. I would say it's most important, that's when most of the astrologers also speak of it as the Pleiadian time, Pleiadian week. But the other end of the axis, because the opposite sign of Taurus is Scorpio, so this also becomes important. And personally, I'm always feeling it, during both these times. So today I want to share with you what we're going through, because it can be, quite a time when a lot changes and a lot is activated, soul missions and these contracts basically. So that's what we're going to get into. If that's something that you're interested in, then keep watching this video. And please know that if you would like some personal services with me, some personal time, then I have these services available on my website, which is www.LivingOurAscension.com. You can find the link below this video. And I also have a Facebook page and an Instagram community where I share some things that are not through the format of video, so you can follow me over there as well. So now, without further ado, I'd like to begin. So as some of you might know, in California we have these wildfires that are happening, and the air is really thick and it's very unhealthy, which is why I'm not going outside, and that's why I'm filming indoors. So I hope that you don't mind. It's just a plain background. Usually I really like to film outside, but I'm still gonna get all the information that needs to come through this video. That's important at this time. So if you would like to hear that, then please keep watching. Now, even though the Pleiadian Gateway is exact from the 16th to the 19th, we've been feeling it already for the past 1 week at least, and also we will be feeling it after as well, at least a few days after to a week after the time. And whatever is activated now, you can say that it's applicable for the next 6 months, mainly because the next Pleiadian portal will be in May, and so whatever is opening up now, new ones will open up around May. And so what we're speaking about now are galactic missions that will serve us until then. And another thing that I wanted to mention that I forgot in the introduction is that I already made a video about the Pleiadian Gateway. It's a meditation. It's like an exercise that you can do with me to deliver your cosmic self. So please check that out. It was quite a powerful meditation, experience that I went through, and I put it in the form of meditation for all of us to anchor at this time, to come into our higher potential. And the first point that I want to speak about the Pleiadian Gateway is that is the collapse of the third dimension and the acceleration of predestined soul plans. So what does this mean? It means that there's this acceleration that's going on now. So like I was saying, whenever high frequency light comes in through portals like this, or when we activate it in our personal life through our personal efforts, but especially during galactic portals like this, it becomes really activated anyway, so it's much more readily available. And what happens is that, you know, it causes a disturbance because there's a high frequency vibration coming in, and anything that's lower than it now needs to shift and move into a higher vibration. Or, you know, there will be some chaos that's caused, and so what's happening is that there's a lot of changes that are going on that we're experiencing, and quite frankly at this time they're very challenging. You know, it's not always that during these portals that we will go through a lot of turbulence as well. You know, sometimes they can be the flavor can be a bit different in the way that the change lands, but at this time there is a lot that's going on, you know, that can be quite turbulent. And the messages that I received is that a lot of people, you know, humans are being accelerated their soul missions, even those who are not, you know, on the spiritual path as such. They're not really, perhaps they won't even actively get into it in their life, but still every human is living, you know, their life is important and they're here for a mission. Every soul comes in before their birth. You know, the soul itself plans what plan it has for itself, what it wants to achieve in this lifetime, why it wants to come to the earth. And so this is being accelerated, and when there's a sudden acceleration, it usually happens through these turbulent changes, you know, like a sudden reversal, or just sudden losses even, or sometimes it's not even a loss, it's just a big change that happens and you have to prepare yourself. You know, it might be something positive, like let's say you're moving to another country, or you're changing jobs in a major way. The body still needs to adapt, and so this is what's happening now. And especially for those who are, you know, who are not very attached to the third dimension and the structures of the third dimension. You know, they place their security and all of their identity on something that is of the physical realms. Then this is collapsing, and we can see this. You know, for example, I live in San Francisco, and the air here is so bad because there's all of these wildfires that are happening, and a whole section of California is engulfed in it, and we're experiencing, you know, some of the worst air in decades over here, even though wildfires are pretty common here. And you know, I even watched some really scary videos of people, you know, going through fire. Like there was this lady that was driving, and she was trying to escape the fire, and she had to go through like this wall of fire, and not knowing whether she's going to be dead or alive. And she survived, but you know, for many people, they also died. They lost their homes, you know. So there's these big reversals of fortune are happening, and it's not just here. We are in the sign of Scorpio, so you know, the sign of Scorpio is about death and rebirth. Plus, you know, astrologically, there's lots of changes that happened recently with Uranus moving signs, with also with the North Node changing signs, you know, and some other things also happening. But I'm not going to get into that in this video. But what we have to know is that, you know, these changes, when they happen, it's not because you did something wrong. It really, all that it comes down to is the fact that your soul chose something at the beginning, before you came into this life, about what you needed to do, what you needed to experience. And sometimes when we're on the earth, because the earth has this veil of forgetfulness, you know, once we come on earth, we forget why we were born, and the fact that we have this immense power, and we're not all alone, we're not just this physical body. So it's almost like this quarantine that we have formed from our thought process and from so much identification with the third dimension. But sometimes when you lose everything, or you lose something significant, you know, when you're holding on to one thing that you really identify with and you lose it, it shows you that, you know, that there's something larger, and that you're still alive. You know, maybe you have a chance still to thrive. So it shows you that your identity is something more. This is something that you knew yourself as. You know, you're something greater, and there's just so much liberation and freedom that comes from that. It's like this ultimate liberation. So that is what is being activated now, the frequency of ultimate liberation. And some people who are really holding on to the third dimension still will go through the idea of suffering, and it's only because they at the end of it, hopefully the human realizes that suffering is self-created. And because when you're going through intense experiences, like I was saying, you realize that, wow, I survived this, I am life, I'm something greater. Even when I have nothing, I'm something. And you feel that energy of new beginnings that perhaps you wouldn't have initiated for yourself on your own. It took something external to make it happen. So when humans have come on the earth plane and they're going about their business, about their daily life, and they forget their soul mission, sometimes these shake-ups happen. That's why certain people live in certain regions where let's say the weather is more turbulent, or even if you don't, you might experience something in your life at certain different times. Every human does, that shakes them up. So that is the reason. The higher reason for it has nothing to do with you having to pay off your karmic debt and stuff like that. It's really just about wisdom, the wisdom that the soul acquires, and the experience that the soul goes through. So that needs to happen one way or the other when we do it consciously. But for those souls who are farther along their journey of ascension, who are really on the ascension timeline, like for real, not just those who are enthusiastically speaking about ascension, but really living it, for them, the reality is a little bit different. Challenges might happen, but they experience it differently. And because for them, the moving into the ascension timeline basically refers to the 4th dimensional level and higher. So it's like when beings move to an awareness level, an experience level within themselves that is of the middle 4th dimension to higher 4th dimension especially, and then more so like in the 5th dimension, because that is the level of the higher heart of divine love. But even with the movement of the energetic space into the 4th dimension, a being becomes aware that they are not just a physical body, but there's something called energy, and that they are an energetic being as well. And they're aware of the energy that's moving through them, and the fact that it needs to be balanced, and the fact that there is only love. And it's not just about knowing this and reading it. Many humans know that already. It's about living it. It's about when your consciousness has shifted, when the heart has shifted. It's almost like a physical shift that needs to happen. It's not just about knowing something. But anyway, for those humans who are on the ascension timeline in this way, they live within love. So it's not as if they face less challenges, but sometimes these they face the lower end of these challenges, of the turbulence, or what can happen is that there are challenges that are going on, and these big changes, but they don't feel the drama as much within themselves. So there might be dramatic changes outside, but there isn't so much drama that's felt inside, because there is a certain level of non-attachment to the external things that are there. They know that that things need to leave, that there's a natural process of birth and then death, rebirth, transformation that happens. So the human at this level is able to do that. So for those of you who are on the ascension timeline, and I think many people who watch these videos, who have found a channel such as this that is so specific, would be on the ascension timeline. So for those people, their reality is different, so you don't have to get scared that, oh my god, am I going to lose everything? That's not how it goes. It's just that we have to be ready for certain changes, and we have to surrender to the fact that they are happening. And that when acceptance is the big word, acceptance of where you are and what's happening, and acceptance of the fact that you're not doing something wrong just because something's going on in your reality. Like there's these wildfires, and I sometimes when it gets a bit intense, I ask myself, why do I have to experience this? Even though I've been through a certain level of purity within myself, it's like I've been through a certain level of cleansing. Why does it feel like there's always something to clean, further? But that's how it is. I'll speak about that further, why that is in the next point. But again, you're paving the way. Whatever changes are happening in your life, you choose how dramatic to make it within yourself. It's a different experience, and you're paving the way for certain realizations of ultimate liberation. So certain events that shake us up to small and big degrees come to make us realize of the fact that ultimately we are free, ultimately we are liberated, we are not attached to anything that is of the physical form. The next point I want to speak about is that we are moving into angelic service. So there's this angelic level of our being that's landing, and when I made the previous video, Delivering Your Cosmic Self, this is kind of part of it, even though back then I didn't know exactly what was being delivered. It was the more initial stages, but it's our angelic levels and you know, how we are serving. So that is expanding, and I'm going to read out some things that I've written, and then maybe I'll explain a little bit. More amongst those on the Ascension Timeline are merging with their angelic self. This is a very high level of our enlightenment process, but the opportunities to live it are here now. Since different people are at different levels of ascension, for most, this is a time to get codes from their angelic self. Mostly this is happening through a lot of repatterning within the midst of challenging outer circumstances. There is an area of life we are discovering we cannot change or hope to just wait it out until it shifts. We can't just, you know, keep hoping to wait. We can't just keep waiting for something to happen or something to move, something to shift. We have to accept whatever reality we find ourselves in, even if we feel like we don't need that particular challenge. You know, we've transcended a certain thing within ourselves, and why are we in the middle? But this is happening so that and we may have transcended our awareness from just the third dimensional level, yet we will move about in a third dimensional society for the decades to come. And so the mastery happening now is the realization that an angel doesn't change its blissful nature just because something of the external cannot be changed. Wherever they find themselves present, it is to create a new dimension of being, a space where, because they know and hold Christ light, it finds its presence on the earth. So they're just a conduit for Christ light, just a conduit for service. Especially those in the midst of chaos serve to make it available to those around them. When we have purified ourselves to a certain level and we wonder why it feels like things are not ours, are constantly coming our way, for us to clean up, this is the reason why. Because an angelic being just follows the thought of Creator and finds themselves where that stream flows. Their job is not to question, but to know that as long as they remember themselves as the Christ light, this creates a zone that is perfectly safe, protected, and expansion filled for themselves and others, despite surface appearances at the third dimensional level. So moments when we are called to question such things are also moments where these new questions come into our awareness, and thus the answers follow soon after in the form of abilities that we didn't think we had capacity for. So what I mean by this is that you know, sometimes when we go through a bit of a shake-up, or we don't have answers, like we ask those questions about life, you know, why is this happening to me, or why do people have to suffer, why am I here, why am I in the middle of this chaos? Sometimes other people cannot give you the answers to that, and it's because that answer needs to come through you. And you know, it becomes that point of genius, it becomes that point of complete uniqueness, you know, an answer that is only given to you, you know, even though there's so many beings within the universe, so much life, you know, each life is very, very unique. Even so, you know, despite the immense diversity, and every human has a soul, and they have these multi-dimensional layers, and that makes them completely unique, you know, very nuanced. And so your service is very nuanced, and you know, these kind of events, they lead to, like, when we are kind of stuck or at a loss for words or answers, and we have all these questions coming up, it's because, you know, we are supposed to devote ourselves to that service in some way, like the answers flow to us. Especially for those beings who are moving into their angelic self, which is a really high level of being. And, you know, Spirit mentions here that this is happening for some individuals, and it's not going to be like a lot of individuals, this is a really high level of being, but once in a while I'll get these messages that this is happening. So it's really encouraging to hear that there are a few individuals moving to these levels in their ascension process. But also, no matter what level of ascension you're at, you will be coming face to face with your angelic self, because this is what's happening for all of us. And so to whatever degree you are willing to embrace it, to surrender to it, is that merge happens, or that remembrance comes, or you remember something about it. So it will be to various degrees, but there are some beings that are moving to this level. So that is one of the main points that I'm trying to make here. So I want to again read out the next point exactly as I channeled it, and then I'll explain it later. So the last and third point is critical questions lead to critical culminations and moments of brilliance. And this is again what I was speaking about before, is that we have these questions come up about why am I here, or why is this happening, why do people have to suffer, these critical questions that we come up with that we have no answer to. It's speaking about that. So these answers are not ones that can be given to us by the world. When dire questions rise from within the soul about the whys and hows of life, and no one really knows the answer, if the soul is open without ego and judgment, they are shown how it is their unique task to bridge that gap and somehow contribute to that answer. And you will be contributing not just through knowing the answer and speaking about it, but just through your frequency, just by being it. Just when that knowing comes in, it changes something within your DNA, and just holding that light makes all the difference. Sometimes you don't even have to do anything, but you'll be contributing to that answer through perhaps knowing what to do next, perhaps speaking about it. It can be anything, but the main thing is the knowing, is the remembrance. So moments of brilliance and flashes of inspiration are possible now, where unique answers are being channeled by us in accordance to our very specific multidimensional frequency and area of expertise. So all of us have a soul frequency, and then we have these different levels of being at the different dimensional levels. We are multidimensional beings. So there's many different gifts that we have, and different levels that we serve, and therefore our frequency is very specific. It's, even though there's so many people around you, for example, other people on the ascension path, and they serve a certain way, and you think that I have to do something similar. It might be similar, but it'll actually be very unique when you get that specific about it. It has to do with our multidimensional gifts, and it all coming together looking like a certain thing. And of course our purpose also changes from time to time, depending on whatever is needed for the service of the greater good. So those exact codes are coming now through flashes of light, through flashes of brilliance, and often through those moments where we are left with a question that we can't answer. The world can't give us the answer, and that leads us deeper within ourselves, because we don't have the answers outside. So we stop looking outside and we go within, because we're left with no other choice. So these dire questions sometimes lead us to deeper areas within ourselves, from which new light comes in, light that the world hasn't seen. It'll be very unique and specific to you. So that'll be your contribution. So you may have heard people mention, about critical mass, that when a certain level of humans, hit a certain level of awareness, it will tip the scales, it's like they're going up, and then it tips the scale, and overall something in the collective changes. The energy shifts, because so many people have moved, have shifted, and that kind of creates its own momentum, which drags other people along as well, to something higher. So they have more help in that sense, and that's what that's how we hear the term critical mass quite a few times in the spiritual community. But we're reaching that critical culmination within ourselves through these questions that we have unanswered, through these moments of challenges that we are facing or we are seeing around us as well, and these critical culminations are happening. So it's like you hit this, you have a realization, and then you're on the other side. So just realize that. I just wanted to mention that, that's happening, because if you're going through something challenging and you have no answers, it's good to know why, and that realization in itself helps us a lot. So I pulled a card for all of us, for the Pleiadian Gateway, just as a final parting message. And usually I will, channel my own message after the card that I pull. But this time I didn't want to, because the message in the book is quite nice, and I want to read it as it is. So it's the card that we got is called Paradox, and it's from this deck called Galactic Heritage Cards. This is the book, but the deck looks like this. The deck cover is pretty much like this. It's by Lisa Royal Holt. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. But the Galactic Heritage Cards, and they have these cards from different star civilizations, like the Pleiades, Sirius, Arcturus, whatever it might be. And the card that we get is the Zeta Reticuli. And as some of you might know, these beings, they are related, they are famous for causing some trouble and being, I don't exactly remember, I'm sure it'll be in the message, but these beings, they are known for tampering with earth, because beings there are many benevolent beings in the universe, angelic beings and other star people that help us whenever we have questions. We get downloads. This is coming from something, from a source, so there's many helpers that we have in this way. But there's also beings, like when we're in a lower negative feeling space, then we attract beings who are there to manipulate us a little bit, more negative energies. And these species are known to have caused some of that, to be a little bit naughty, you can say. But like everyone else, every being is going through its journey, and every civilization, just like the humans on earth too, are evolving. So we get the message of Paradox, and let's see what it is. The Zetas passed through an essential transformational paradigm on their way to enlightenment. It has to do with an alchemical shift from a state of polarity to the paradox of containing both poles simultaneously in total balance with no preference for either. Spiritually, they learned to be both full, containing the universe in all its forms, and empty, containing nothing but conscious awareness. Living this paradox is a point of power and is the key for spiritual transformation. You contain this paradox as well. Learn to tap into it to accelerate your evolution. Let the Zetas guide you. This card refers to the Zeta era in which their species became enlightened. The theme of this card may be the most difficult one in the deck to understand. Well, that's no surprise, because we are also going through a very challenging time at this time. Because the mind is used to processing its view of reality through polarity, choosing one or the other. A paradox is a seemingly true statement or groups of statements that leads to a contradiction or situation that seems to defy logic or intuition. The mind cannot grasp that two opposing forces can sometimes coexist harmoniously. Very often when people discover a paradox on their spiritual journey, they believe that it is because they have somehow failed in their work. The opposite is true. It means that we are closer to the truth, because truth cannot exist without a polarized perspective. As we teach ourselves to go beyond this or that, a whole new reality opens up. If this card came up in your reading, it points to a shift in your perspectives that is on the horizon or happening now. This shift can take you closer to unlocking limited beliefs and perspectives that keep you stuck. If you encounter a paradox in your life, resist the temptation to make a choice of this or that. Let the two ideas both be present without choosing one or the other. Let yourself feel what that does within your consciousness. This was one of the key exercises that helped to free the Zeta species and facilitate their enlightenment, and it will be a key in human transcendence as well. So I just want to leave you with that message, and if there's any more updates, I'll make more videos, but definitely the videos about 2019 will be coming up, because I already made notes for them. So when I'm guided, I'll be making those videos soon. So I'll see you very soon. Please check out my website for anything further, for any more information, for free information, as well as for personal services with me, www.LivingOurAscension.com, and the link will be below this video. And see you next time.